Hi everyone, in today's video I'm going to do a quick guide in Oracion Seis mode in Fairy Tail Phase 5. Now this is, I think it's probably the latest game content you'll be able to unlock outside of kind of the main story. But basically this is something you only unlock at level 48 and it requires you to be different members of Oracion Seis. And basically you get 5 tries every single day. Now those two, Midnight and Angel, are not out yet. But basically you can already try those other 4 bosses. The way it works is that each boss have a specific gimmick. So in this video, I am gonna talk about the gimmick for each one of them and show you gameplay of how to actually beat them, like what's the tip, etc. And I'll be doing a commentary during my clip, so you know exactly what's going on. Now, if you actually go into it, what you can see is there's like a normal mode, a hard mode, and then also an extreme mode. I don't know what's the maximum level of the extreme, but I know it can go as high as like extreme 9 or extreme 10. So definitely there's a lot more. Now I am only at extreme 5 right now. I can probably push harder, but there's a reason why I'm not pushing, and I'm going to tell you this now because I do feel it's going to be a quite fundamental thing you want to watch out for, especially if you just got onto this stage. And the reason why I do not suggest people to push too hard is because if you look at the reward for all of the extreme levels, you will see that all of the rewards are actually identical. There's nothing different between the rewards. Now, if you actually then end up going too hard, you can see the rewards are fundamentally different, and therefore you almost never want to do any of the hard mode or normal mode after you do them the first time. You still want to do it the first time just to collect kind of the first time bonus, etc. But afterwards, you definitely want to always do extreme versions if possible. And the thing with this is, even though you have 5 tries every single day, once you have used a character, you cannot use them again. So depending on how strong your box is, what I strongly recommend is that you guarantee you're able to clear at least 5 times extreme. Even if it's extreme 1, just clear this 5 times to make sure you get maximum amount of reward before deciding to push any harder. What I typically do right now is that I will spend the first 3 tries using some of my weaker character or kind of like my the characters I used to play, but then kind of stopped focusing on them. So they're kind of like a bit leveled up. So their gears maybe like level 25 or level 30. I unlock their magic stones, etc. But not so much on their skills or kind of upgrading them. That's kind of the ones I use, and I'll just spam extreme 1 to make sure I at least max out all of the reward possible. And then for the last 2 tries of the day, I basically haven't used any of my best character, and then I'm actually able to push content by putting all 3 of my best character in a single team and see as far as I go. So that's kind of why I'm not pushing too hard on any of them right now, because I personally just think there's no rush. Like, you definitely want to prioritize getting all of the extreme level rewards every single day, because the first time reward is the only difference you're going to make, and they're never going to go away, so there's no need for you to push so hard. Oh, actually no, there is one difference between pushing the easy mode and also clearing the hard mode, and that's because eventually you will be able to unlock this thing. So I think the harder the stage, the bigger amount of bar is going to increase by, and once you and basically they give you this kind of willpower thing, and the idea here is that when you go into a stage, it's gonna say what's the suggested willpower. If your willpower is lower than the suggested one, then I think there's a bit of like a debuff on of your character, so you do less damage. Whereas the other way around, if your willpower is a lot higher than the suggested one, then your attacks do more damage. So it does help a bit, but once again, I mean, from reward point of view, you are not going to get anything different. Yes, you're able to clear and get the first time rewards a bit quicker than other players, but you know it's still the same amount of reward at the end of the day. So I would much rather you guys try to max out and make sure you're able to at least guarantee clearing extreme at least 5 times every single day than kind of screwing yourself up by having all of your good characters trying to push as high as possible and then do not have enough good characters to even finish up an extreme 1 level, for example. But that's kind of the suggestion I'm going to make you. Now, in terms of the gimmick for every single one of them, now if you actually go into the description, it's going to tell you exactly what the gimmick is. So, for example, Hoteye, this is going to say something like it's immune to magic attacks, so you definitely want to deploy physical attackers. For Cobra, it's the other way around. You want to deploy magic attack users rather than physical. For Brain, it's a bit very gimmick heavy. Basically, there's one skill where you need to require to break the pillar with magic attack. There's also another skill which kind of require you to walk around in anti-clockwise fashion or just run around the arena in anti-clockwise fashion to avoid attacks. Once again, it's going to become more clear when I show you the clip, so you know exactly what's going to happen in the battle. Now, I'm going to show you the clip for Brain, Hoteye, and Cobra. Um, Razor is the one I'm not going to show you today because, in all honesty, I don't think I'm clearing it correctly. It's also the one I find to be the most difficult because the gimmick for Cobra is not very obvious. It just says I quickly clear the motorcycle. So basically, what Razor is going to do is that he's going to summon some motorcycles onto the field. He will just run around and do damage to you. And basically, it sounds like the hint the game is trying to give you is that you want to take out those motorcycles first before attacking Razor. However, from the way I am when I'm playing, what I actually find is that because the motorcycle run around so much, you it's too much effort to go chasing after them. Like yes, they will run around and then they stop a while, but still because they created so much distance, you don't have to kind of run all the way to the motorcycle to attack them. And there are multiple motorcycles on the field. I just don't find that very efficient. So what I end up doing is I just use character with a long range attack so that I'm able to try to hit Racer and the motorcycle at the same time. But in vast majority of the time, I'm pretty much just focusing on Racer and I'm kind of ignoring the motorcycle. So in some sense, I'm kind of just beating all the stages for Racer through pure brute force rather than trying to use some clever way of doing it. But that's kind of why I don't really want to show you the way I do it because I don't think that's correct. Now, if you know a better way of doing it rather than kind of just what I'm doing, which is like brute force it, then do let me know because I'm actually very interested. This is definitely the one I feel is going to be the most confusing and also the most difficult in my opinion. But yeah, now I'm going to just show you the clips for Hoteye, Cobra, and Brain so you know exactly what to do in the actual battle themselves. With Hoteye first. So Hoteye basically, first thing to know, Hoteye does not take any magic damage. He only takes physical attacks. So always deploy your unit using the one with the red icon. So basically the physical attackers. Now, preferably you would want a physical attacker who actually do long range attack. So Jalal or Makarov, etc. The ones with just not long range attack but skills that reach really far, like Garjo, would also work, and I will show you why in a bit. But basically, yeah, so physical attacker definitely, and preferably someone who can actually hit very far. Now, at the start of the battle, as you go into it, you just fight as normal. You can do whatever you want, just do some hits. Eventually, Hoteye is gonna spam his attack, which is kind of you will show, yeah, like this. So basically, there's like a circle on the ground, which indicate the range of his attack, so you just dodge that. Those are still fine. Now, his main gimmick is actually when he starts his animation. What you're going to see is that he is going to fire off multiple attacks centered around from himself. So you can see here, the angle is not the greatest, but basically what you can see here is that from the middle where he is centered, he's going to shoot off different lines of attack. And what's very important for you is basically you want to stand in between the two lines. So even though he is branching off his attack from the center outwards, the actual damage will only be the ones which is kind of those floating stones, so only those lines of stones. So you simply like do what I do. You stand in between those two lines and you would therefore not take any damage. Now when he's firing off those attacks, he will then be charging up for his next round. During that time, you do not want to go into too close to him because when you're too close to him, when he fire off the attacks, the gap between the two lines will not be big enough. So the further away you stand, the gap between the lines are going to be greater. So obviously there's more margin for error. If you're standing too close, the gap will be too small and you may likely to take some hit. However, this is where I then say, you preferably want to use someone who can do long range attack because now I can actually just move towards slightly when he is charge arm, you move inward slightly so that the enemy is within the range of attack, and then you just fire off your normal attack from here. You can also do skill attack, for example, what I'm doing here right now with Jalal skill 3, and that's why I said Garjo would also work, because even though Garjo's normal attack is really short range, all of his skills are actually really long range, so Garjo would work here fine as well. Even if you don't have someone with long range attack, it's fine. I mean, all of this is pretty much a chip damage to help you take down Hoteye quicker, but it's not like mandatory or anything. And yeah, so definitely keep an eye out. So if I go back slightly, you would once again see some lines of attack, and that's what you need to dodge. So for example here, once again, you see there are multiple lines of attack. You want to stand in middle of those two lines, so basically take the gap between them. And this way you will not take any damage. Now when he fire off those animations, the next thing he will do is this part which is saying that he's about to go insanity. A couple of things you can do here. One, if you actually have someone who have a control attack, now Hoteye is actually basically able to be controlled. Before he will be immune to control, but when he says he's about to gain insanity, now he can actually be controlled. So that will be one way of doing it. Or if you're like me who actually have long range attack, you can actually then just go outside of the circle, his range of attack, and just attack from far. That's also fine. But yeah, the right way of doing this, to be honest, is actually to control him. So now what you can see is that I'm just running around so that I am able to fire off attack from far. Obviously, you want to be careful. For example, here I just took some damage, which is not ideal. That's kind of why controlling him is generally the better option. Okay, now he is going to fire off his animation again and do the same attack. Now the second time he do it, he is actually, I believe, going to do is like 3 or 4 attacks in a row. But the drill is the same. You still want to basically, once again, he's going to fire off different lines of attack. You want to stand in the middle of those gaps. So basically do that. When he's charging up, move inwards to do a few hits. When he's attacking again, move outwards to stand in the gap so you can dodge them. Inwards attack, outwards dodge. Basically just repeat that. Now, once again, now he's going to fire off a few more, shorter range attack. This bit is just kind of up to you to kind of maneuver around, make sure you actually dodge off them, and then yeah, just kind of try to take him out as quickly as possible. So yeah, so that was gonna be how you take down Hoteye. Okay, now let's talk about Cobra, who is kind of like the opposite of Hoteye. So basically, Hoteye is immune to any magic attack. Cobra is immune to any physical attack. So that's kind of why you only want to bring magic attack users, so only the ones with blue icons. Now, the way Cobra works is that he is going to charge up to do some attacks, but all of his attacks are really, really obvious. Like, it shows the marking on the ground of the range of his attack. So, for example, like this, and he literally stands still for like 3 seconds while doing that. Every single time, so it's actually really, really easy. You just literally go either from the side or go from the back and then just hit him while he's charging up. Now, every now and then he's gonna release some like drops of poison onto the ground, but once again, there are gonna be floor markings. You just need to avoid them, and you basically just repeat that for ages, and that's how you will eventually be able to chip it down. Even when Cobra releases, I guess, special gimmick kind of ultimate animations, uh, he's still just standing still to charge up for a really long time. So yeah, so you just literally circle around him, go from the side, go from the back, do some chip damage every now and then, and eventually just wear him down. He's only gonna get a bit tricky towards the very, very end of the battle. I'm not sure whether it's triggered based on time or whether it's triggered based on when his HP is below a certain threshold. But yeah, basically like until then, just run around and attack from side. So you can see here, I'm literally just circling around. He's just standing still for pretty much all of the battle. Rotate amongst your characters so you don't have anyone kind of dying too quickly, etc. But yeah, it's pretty easy. I think he's about to go berserk every second now. That's the only time we need to be careful. Yeah, so now he's going berserk. He's just kind of firing off attack back to back without any charging up period. So this is the only time when he's actually a bit tricky to deal with. But, he is only going to be like that at the very, very end of the battle. So you can pretty much get away with just circling around him. Okay, now let's do brain. So the thing with brain is that you want to bring at least one magic user and one physical attack user on your team, because depending on the skill he release, you would need to hit with the right type of character in order to break a pillar on the in this kind of arena. Now, I'm not sure how he decided which skill to attack, but from all of the tries I have been doing, or at least from all the way up to Extreme 4, which is where I am up to right now, he is only gonna use the one which requires a magic attack user to break the pillar. So I don't know whether the physical attacker is only gonna need it in later on in the battle. Maybe I just kill off Brain too quickly, or maybe it's for the harder extreme mode. I'm not too sure, but for certain, for the early stages, you definitely want at least one magic user on your team. The other two, preferably one physical, just in case he does use that other skill. But yeah, just kind of make sure you have at least one magic user to break the pillar. So in my case, that's gonna be my Hoteye here. Now, when he starts off the battle, he is just gonna stand still for a bit, so you can do a bit of an attack. But very soon, a few seconds in, like 10 seconds into the battle, he is gonna start his animation. I think called Great Fusion. I think that's the name of the one, and that's the one where you then need a magic user to break the pillar on this kind of arena. So what you can see is a pillar have just popped up from the ground, and this is where you then need to switch to a magic attack user to quickly take down the HP of this pillar. Pillar wouldn't be destroyed straight away, but what you can see is that if I just go back slightly, is that when you actually do enough damage to the pillar, so for example, you see the HP goes down, then you create a shield. Now, if you do not have shield, you can see this crazy amount of attack is just going to one-shot you. So you definitely need a magic user to break that pillar so that you create a safe space inside the shield for you to be protected. Continue to attack the pillar to eventually break it. And then this is kind of moving on to the second phase of the attack. You still have a bit of time to do a few more hits before his kind of second ultimate skill release. But basically, what he is then going to release is an attack which comes in like kind of a cross shape. So basically, he is going to fire off in four different directions. But not only that, he's actually going to rotate around those four attacks. So you kind of need to run alongside with it. So you can see there are like four attacks. So for example, you can see here four beams popped up. And what you need to do is because the beams will be rotating anti-clockwise, you just need to run alongside with it to make sure it doesn't get hit. Now, the trick here is that, well, not trick, but my tips here is that you do not want to be too close to brain when you are doing the running, and you do not want to be too far away. The reason is if you're too close, the gap between the two beams are not very big. So if you run a bit too quickly, what's going to end up happening is that you would, yes, you will be able to avoid the one behind you, but then you run into the one in front of you, which is not good. And as soon as you hit that, it's like one hit KO. So you definitely want to avoid that. And also, you don't want to run too far away from Bray because the further away you run, remember this is kind of like a circle shape. The further away you are from brain, the longer the distance. You can see the gap is longer, so you therefore need to run longer. So even though your speed is the same and the beam's speed is the same, because you have a longer distance to cover, then the beam is actually just gonna eventually catch up to you. So that's basically what it is. So you definitely do not want to run too far away from brain either. So that's kind of why I suggest kind of run in the middle. Now the trickiest part of this for me is actually the camera angle because every now and then I lost sight of the beam in front of me, so I don't know how fast I should be running, or should I slow down slightly? But yeah, like I said, you just literally run around with it, and that's kind of the main gimmick for brain.